Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Runewords. Today we're going to be looking at the rune word Hearth. It's a new rune word that just came out. It was released by Macrobio Boy. And Hearth is one of a set of rune words of 5 that have to do with a specific resistance. This one in specifically is cold, of course, and this is denoted by the Thul rune in the recipe. How these rune word works is these rune words are Shael IO always, and then the subsequent rune word at the end is what determines whether the rune word is going to be fire, cold, ice, or even physical or poison. Thul is the cold resistance rune word or rune, and as you can see, it causes the rune word to have a very nice effect in terms of its cold resistance. And let's go over the rune word really quickly, and I'll tell you how it rolls. So first off, we have a 20% faster recovery, which of course comes from the actual Shael rune itself. And then we have a 75 to 100% enhanced defense, which is pretty darn good. That is actually a lot of defense for a a low-level rune word like this at level 35. And we also have the plus 10 vitality, which comes from the IO rune itself. And the vitality is actually pretty sweet because it does give you a pretty good boost in HP depending on what character you are. Although it's also important to point out that if you're one of those characters that has very poor vitality to HP, like for instance a sorceress or a necromancer, you don't really get as much of an effect. We also have a nice little 5% increased maximum life. Now, the increased maximum life will work on mercenaries, but the vitality won't because mercenaries don't actually have vitality. We also have cold resistance. Now, the cold resistance is a little strange because we got the Thul rune in there, which is 30% cold resistance already. And then the rune word itself rolls between 10 to 60% cold resistance, which is a pretty nice value. Granted, you could utilize this to replace something like the resistance that you lost from putting on a cold sunder. Could be a stopgap measure until you get something better. It also rolls between 10 to 15% cold absorption, which is pretty darn powerful. Now, granted, there are not a super large amount of skills and abilities in the game that are cold damage, but the ones that are actually pretty devastating. So if you're going up against a specific monster that has cold damage, like for instance Duriel with Holy Freeze, it could be a very nice helmet to utilize on a character as you go into, say, Nightmare Duriel or something, or Hell Duriel for the first time. Just throw on a Hearth mask. I mean, it's Shael IO Thul. It's not very expensive. IO being the most expensive rune word in the recipe. And quite honestly, the IO rune is dirt cheap. Most of you who have been playing for a long period of time will know that you end up with a ton of IO runes. Now, I just don't want to show you a picture of the rune word. I want you guys to be able to download it and have fun with it. So I went ahead and I created some mock versions of these rune words that you guys can download and have fun with. And I have here a Hurricane Wolf Head. I've got a Barbarian Battle Orders. I've got a Death Mask. I have an ethereal version, so you can throw it on your mercenary, and I also have an ethereal barbarian one as well, so you can throw that on a mercenary. Now, these particular ones can be downloaded through my item pack, which will be linked in the description, of course, as always. And by the time I upload this video, they should be live. Hopefully, I'm going to get it all done as quick as I can here. But as you can see, the defense, even just on a death mask, like a superior death mask, is actually not bad at all. We're looking at 245 defense from an F death mask, and that is actually really good, especially considering that, you know, you could potentially find something even better than this. Like, for instance, a demon head, which is the elite version. So you could find like an F 3-socket demon head and throw that in there. And then you'd have probably a helmet with close to, what, 300-400 defense on it, which isn't really too bad at all. I feel like these helmets were almost designed for the Sunder Charms, specifically to just give you like a very easy stopgap measure to replace the resistances that you're losing from the Sunder Charms. And then eventually you obviously, you know, replace them with something else. But they're cheap mid-game recipes. You know, they're not meant to be end-game stuff, and they don't need to be. Not everything in the game needs to be an end-game recipe. When it comes to this particular rune word, I'm looking at it and I see a very interesting rune word, but I also see a lack of lifesteal. I feel like if they're going to go with a cold motif, that they really should go with a little bit harder. And I would love to see them add in one more additional effect. Even if it's just something small that has to do with cold. I'm thinking off the top of my head, a Frost Nova. A chance to proc like maybe a mediocre level Frost Nova. Something like maybe like a level 7 so that it has like a decent chill duration, but it's not so high that it can be abused by the sorceress. About like a level 7 Frost Nova with like a on-struck chance. Because Frost Nova is an extremely good defensive ability, and we've already gone with the cold motif here. We've already kind of like, you know, created this whole atmosphere of like this is the cold helmet. So, like, throw in some other cold stuff. This is PTR, right? This is 2.6 PTR, and these are not finalized Runewords. So, eventually, when they do finalize these Runewords, when we come out with 2.6 live and we've got the full versions, just a couple tweaks here and there could make these into more valuable Runewords than they currently are, I think. I mean, not that I would throw lifesteal on every single one, but lifesteal would certainly make them a hell of a lot more useful with mercenaries, just in general. And anyway, they're here for you guys to test with if you guys want to play around with them. The 20% faster hit recovery on these definitely is a good thing, though, because mercenaries just have terrible faster hit recovery frames, just in general. And even the smallest amount of faster hit recovery on a mercenary can be such a huge boon and fix to the way that the character works. I think that's pretty much it. This particular one, not really a whole lot special to talk about it. The only thing I can really kind of like even say is like, where would you use the cold absorption, right? Like, what monsters use cold damage attacks on you? Well, I mean, you do have the Frost Nova on death from a lot of monsters that can be pretty deadly. There are quite a few monsters in Travancore and various other places that have those same monsters, like the Halls of Pain, that will spam Blizzard on you, which can be pretty painful. The Summoner himself, although he's not particularly hard to kill, he does spam Glacial Spikes, and I have seen him annihilate some people before. And, of course, Duriel, which is the biggest one that comes to my mind. I feel like this would work really good against Duriel, just in general. Because not only is it going to give you a huge resistance to his Holy Freeze aura, which is a big part of his damage, but also help you to absorb that damage as well. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when I'm just talking about the Hearth rune word. And as always, thanks for watching, and keep watching.